Let's talk to Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator, and find out what on earth is he thinking. Benedict, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I mean, just as we thought that, Keir Starmer suddenly had a grip on immigration, just when we thought that he'd had some kind of road to Damascus conversion on Monday, that he really, really, really doesn't like immigration, which is unusual because he spent most of his life defending it. He goes to Albania. It's almost like he's a sort of the sort of client of a dominatrix. He can't stand to be successful, so everywhere he goes, he has to be humiliated.
That's one way of looking at it.
Not that I know anything about that sort of thing, obviously.
No. One hears of such things at the club. But it's honestly, I mean, the thing, as you sort of alluded to in your opening monologue, anybody could have told him that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's been sort of forecast for a very long time. Look, Albania has a situation, it has an understanding with Italy for very basic reasons. It's got very strong geographic and cultural ties to Italy.
Right.
Right there. But there's something else that needs to be pointed out, which is that Italy's migration situation is slightly different to the UK in that people come to Italy with the expressed intention of using it as a transit zone and moving on somewhere else. That's not the case with the UK, where actually most people who end up here aren't planning on moving on somewhere else, and they plan on staying here. If you're Edi Rama, if you're the Albanian Prime Minister, you might do a deal with Italy because they'll repatriate some people who end up staying in Italy, sort of almost by chance. But actually, if you're looking at the UK from the outside and the sheer numbers of people that we've allowed in and that continue to come in, you'd be sat there and going, okay, even if I wanted to do this, why would it be a good idea? You people have an awful lot of illegal migrants coming to your country.
Right. And also, I mean, Albania is a specifically special case, I would suggest. And I know that people don't like to make broad generalisations, but I'm sorry to say this. Albania is a sort of very, very pure hunting ground for gangsters. You know, Albanian gangsters run the drug trafficking in Europe. They run an awful lot of people trafficking in Europe. When you come to the UK, you find that an awful lot of the Albanians here are actually in prison, or if they're not in prison, they have committed crimes. There are drug gangs in Britain which are run exclusively by Albanians. There's no question about that. And so they are a sort of special case, you know, because people who tend to come to this country from Albania tend to be, bad people. I'm sorry.
Yeah, again, it's one of the slightly ironic things, which is why on earth would you take people who have been potentially trafficked or helped along the way to get here illegally and then put them straight into Albania, where you would imagine a lot of the people who make money out of people trafficking are based. Again, Italy has a very strong geographic and cultural links to Albania. And for the same reason, therefore, organised crime has spread from Italy to Albania. For much the same reasons that they have political links, they also have links in terms of organised crime. And that's where a lot of this comes from. But, you know, again, it's the embarrassment, I think, does get... I mean, this is an embarrassment. It's a power play also by Edi Rama. It's an ability for him to go around and say, look, I've shown up a leader of a major state, of a major Western country, on live television, no less, in front of my own people. It's a huge PR win for him. But equally, right now, there's this talk about Starmer potentially looking to other Balkan states, maybe going to other African states. Well, now, what are his negotiating options going to be like? Because he has been made to look a complete fool, and everybody's also going to know he's desperate.
Yeah. Well, he really is. I mean, the Mail's got a piece in the papers today, pages 6 and 7, where they're basically saying he's hit the panic button and he's almost sort of flailing out, looking for almost anything to hide the chaos at the heart of his government. And it shows you, to me, that, you know, some people may not want to get into the niceties of this, but if you're running an administration and supposedly running, an effective and an efficient one from Downing Street, how is it possible that you go to a place like Albania and get shown up like that? I mean, where are the people asking the questions? Where are the, preparatory kind of notes that you would be given saying, look, we've already agreed this deal, so all it is a matter of a perfunctory kind of press conference and everything's going to be fine. Instead of which, they don't do any of that. They sort of hope for the best. And he goes out there, and somebody said on, I think, Times Radio last night, why did he not just send Yvette Cooper? He went out there because he wanted to be the big I am, and then he got absolutely, I don't want to say it on, breakfast television, but he got basically rammed in the wrong way.
Yeah, he did. And I do think, the whole thing about you saying that he wanted to be sort of a somebody, if you like, he wanted to be that guy. I do think that did play a role. We have to remember the last time that a British government dignitary, if you like, went to Albania, it was David Cameron.
Yes.
And they were really prepared to roll out the red carpet for him. They had banners everywhere, British flags. They had great big banners of Cameron waiting there. And to be fair, that was a bit of a humiliation for the Albanians because Sunak called him straight back before the trip could actually get underway because he called the election.
Right.
So perhaps there was a little bit of, giving it back from the Albanians. But I imagine Starmer probably thought what they were going to do for Cameron, I want that for me.
Yeah, exactly right. Because it's all about kind of image, isn't it? You know, whoever thinks that Morgan McSweeney's a genius, and I always question this because it doesn't appear to be, as far as I'm concerned, that he's a genius at all. In fact, he's a complete idiot. But it's all about, how's it going to look on the evening news? How's it going to look at 6 o'clock when the BBC turns on the news? How's it going to look on Channel 4 at 7 o'clock? How's it going to look at the news at 10? But unfortunately, that's not how the world works anymore because we see it in real time. He puts out a tweet in the morning. We see it immediately at 8 o'clock. He puts out a tweet at 10 o'clock. He puts out a press conference at 11 o'clock. It's all covered live as we speak. Even if you're not watching us here, you're watching maybe another channel or you're watching social media. There is no more 6 o'clock news. Nobody cares about that.
Well, this is the thing. I do think Westminster as a whole, I think is still very much behind the times. There's still this idea that you can spin your way to success and that spin doctors and people like that are particularly talented or of any use, which, to be clear, they weren't to begin with. They were very good at holding the public, if you like, in a holding pattern, whilst not actually fulfilling the role that government was supposed to be doing. But you're right, we're at a moment now where actually it's authenticity, if anything, that gets through. Donald Trump does not have a massive PR team, doing all of his appearances for him, telling him what to say. That's just authenticity. Boris Johnson was, when he was at his best, which was not always, but when it was not because things were scripted and he was doing what he wanted to do. He was just doing things. And the reality is, when it comes to policy now, we're at that stage as well. You can't stage manage policy as a government. You have to actually get on it, do it, and implement it. People are fed up. Patience, I think, has run out with politicians completely across the board now, which was partly why Starmer has had to completely change his position on migration from going, oh, it's fine, isn't it lovely? The food's great in London and everybody gets along to, oh, guys, this really isn't working.
Yeah. Exactly right. And also, if you're going to try and go down that road and try and control the press and control the media and control the message, if you like, then make sure that the person at the other end of the conversation, i.e. the Prime Minister of Albania, is in on it. Don't let him go rogue and say, actually, that's not what we're doing. I mean, it's pathetic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an appalling attempt at stage management or PR or anything like this. All the PR managers in London, of which there are thousands, will be sat there ripping their hair out going, you could have massively overpaid me and I would have foreseen this coming. But alas, they didn't do that. They relied on the Labour Party machine, which, as we've seen over the last year, it's running so smoothly and it's really on top of things.
Yeah, absolutely right. One thing that has been completely forgotten, of course, in all of this Albania stroke, immigration conversation is Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband, very, very quietly and almost without anybody noticing except for us here at Talk, put out a tweet yesterday saying, this is great news. We've passed the GB energy bill this morning in Parliament, and it turns out they did, in a sort of very quiet moment in the House of Commons, they passed the GB energy bill, which gives basically GB Energy the right to plunder all sorts of money from taxpayers, to give it out to people like Scottish Power and other sort of, what you might call multinational energy companies, to supposedly do something green, which is going to help us all. I see this as a massive, massive black hole, if you like, where loads and loads of billions of pounds is going to disappear and nothing good is going to come from it.
Yeah, it's a scam, is what it is.
It really is.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had a happy, blissful few days where I forgot Ed Miliband existed. But the problem is, if you don't know where he is and you forget where he exists, you can't see what chicanery he's up to. The other day I was driving in Norfolk, and there was you drive how things are in Norfolk. By definition, there's fields, lots of fields on either side. You can't really get away from them. But there were so many signs about solar farms, about opposing solar farms, about not allowing them to be built there. And people were actually, they put posts up by the side of the road to say, this is where this solar farm will start, and you'd go and you'd drive in a couple of miles, still going, still going, still going. Vast swathes. There's one just outside of Norwich now. It's absolutely huge, and it's an eyesore, and people are furious about it. Really furious, and they see it coming for the rest of this part of the countryside. And this is something that we can sit here, as you say, we can sit here and we can say, oh, Labour seems to finally get it on migration. I still think they don't get it at all on energy. I mean, for heaven's sake, they still don't seem to understand that taxes affect energy prices. They think that it's sort of magically higher than everybody else because of some international gas market mechanism that magically makes us pay more than everybody else. Honestly, I think that this is the next big thing that is coming for them. I think that conversation for the public has already come for them. I think people are already furious. They just haven't realised yet.
And once they put those kinds of numbers of solar panels in, it will start to look really horrible. It's like when I suddenly discovered, because I hadn't been on a motorway sort of going from south to north for quite a long time, but suddenly I started doing it because one of my kids went to university up there. You suddenly go, where have all these big, massive warehouses come from? Suddenly there's an Amazon warehouse the size of 5 Wembley stadiums on the outside of the M1. And you go, where did that come from? It used to be a lovely sort of green belt out here. And then you see the next one, which is from, Hotel Chocolat or something like that. And you go, sorry, where have these all come from? It'll be the same with solar farms. People will suddenly go, why can it, for as far as the eye can see, can I only see solar panels in the ground?
I mean, the funny thing about where I'm living is it was one of the constituencies that voted Green at the last election. People are not okay with all of these solar farms, and they weren't okay at the time. That's the thing. I mean, they voted Green, I think, largely as a protest vote as much as anything else. But nonetheless, there is not this appetite amongst people to concrete over the countryside and then put all of these solar farms on. And there is also the attitude, and it is coming through, which is, well, this isn't for us. This is for people in London. This is for people in London so that they can get their electricity and feel good about where they got their electricity from, because it comes from the sun, because it comes from... And the thing that I keep on hearing from people is they say, what about me? What about my life? What about my way of living? What about my beautiful countryside? What's it going to do to the price of my house? House prices in London keep on going up, but everybody sort of stays stagnant. What is there in this covenant for me? I'm not getting a good deal. I lived in the countryside. I thought it was going to be very green and pleasant, and now it's horrible.
Exactly right. Absolutely incredible. Benedict, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.